After Castlevania Adventure, there was Belmont's Revenge. Take out your pen and paper, folks, because this is how you make a sequel. While most may argue that Castlevania Adventure doesn't hold up today, its sequel Belmont's Revenge is still held in high regard. While I believe there's still fun to be found in Castlevania Adventure, its successor takes everything that worked and uses it to create a certified masterpiece. And just to make things clear, any footage using the SNES Super Game Boy palette will be Castlevania Adventure, and anything in black and white will be Belmont's Revenge. And with that out of the way, let's dive right in. The first thing you'll notice if you're coming off of Adventure is that our main character, Christopher, must have hit the gym since his last visit with the Count, as he moves faster, jumps higher, and overall just controls much tighter. Belmont's Revenge is by no means a fast-paced game, but is much more in line with other Castlevania games of the time. Like previous entries, Belmont's Revenge is about taking things slow, being patient, and learning how to navigate each stage. Good Castlevania games punish the player for plowing right through and reward them for mastering their mechanics. Belmont's Revenge is not for the impatient gamer. Platforming requires precise timing and an ability to stay focused. If the player is stuck on a certain level, rushing through to make up for lost time is only going to hurt them. This is the same design philosophy found in Adventure, but instead of forcing the player to crawl through at a snail's pace, Belmont's Revenge allows the player to go at their own pace and discover the benefits of looking at their surroundings and planning ahead. Castlevania Adventure was a very punishing game. The whip upgrades in most Castlevania games are unnecessary since the player always gets them at the start of a new life, but Adventure tried to make them more meaningful. Each time the player was struck by an enemy, their whip would be downgraded one level. Had the game relied solely on enemies with readable patterns, this would have been far less frustrating than it was, but bats and rubber balls were either too random or too fast for the player to react to, and led many players to be stuck with using the leather whip for the majority of the game. Belmont's Revenge holds true to this idea of making the whip upgrades matter, but the player only ever gets downgraded when they're hit by the rubber balls, which have had their speed reduced drastically from Adventure. On my first couple of playthroughs, I found myself only being able to hold on to the fire whip for part of the game, but rarely ever dropping down to the leather whip. Upon later playthroughs where I had mastered the patterns of the rubber balls, I was almost never without the fireball upgrade. Rather than make the upgrade mechanics potentially frustrating for new players, Belmont's Revenge makes it a rewarding experience for mastering enemy encounters. Enemy patterns overall are much easier to read, and on many occasions, enemies are placed just out of reach of the normal whip, but can be hit easily with a fire shot, rewarding the player for being cautious and taking in their environment. While having a more useful whip has held back other Castlevania games, the fire upgrade is hardly game-breaking in this case. In fact, Belmont's Revenge does a great job of making sub-weapons actually useful. The fire shot makes the knife and boomerang a bit obsolete, and in their place are the axe and holy water, although strangely enough in the Japanese version the axe is replaced with the boomerang. I find that the axe and holy water are the perfect additions to Christopher's arsenal. While the fire whip is certainly useful, the fire doesn't deal as much damage as a regular whip crack or axe though, making some enemies, in particular these bats, rather dangerous if approached with the fire since they'll split into two unless killed with the axe. Belmont's Revenge has many unique enemies that do more than just take away our protagonist's health. The jellyfish will drain hearts, and the eyeballs can create chasms that Christopher can fall into if the player is not careful. Luckily, a quick splash of holy water keeps these guys from going off, a nice touch to help a clever player from falling down to the danger below. The sub-weapons are perhaps more useful than they ever have been due to these added effects they have. While it's always best to have at least one of them, there are certain situations where one will come in handy more than the other. After personally just playing through Castlevania IV, it's nice to see how much care went into each sub-weapon and not only how it aids the player, but also how it interacts with the environment. The first 4 stages are broken up into 4 different castles: Crystal Castle, Rock Castle, Plant Castle, and Cloud Castle. While the game points you in a certain direction, the player has the freedom to go about these stages in any order they choose. In the era before being able to save your game, I always found this to be good game design. Rather than force the player through the same set of levels in the same order upon starting the game, we're allowed to choose which levels to practice. This holds particularly true for a handheld game. At the time of its release, I'm sure many children were happy to be able to turn on their Game Boy on a short car trip and be able to practice a different castle each time, rather than having to play the first level over and over again. However, if you're more of a one-and-done kind of gamer, Belmont's Revenge also employs a password feature and, if you're playing it on the Castlevania collection, save states as well. However, I find this approach actually lessens the enjoyment one can get from playing Belmont's Revenge. Although levels are linear, there are sometimes alternate routes that the player can take or a sub-weapon that the player may want when they enter a specific castle, encouraging multiple playthroughs to optimize your way through the first 4 stages. In Crystal Castle, the player is given the choice to either climb up or slide down one of the ropes near the end of the level. Having played multiple times myself, I find the upper path to be the easier route, but other players may find the enemies found on the lower path to be easier to get around. Learning the ins and outs of the game are part of the experience, and simply playing the game once will rob the player of this enjoyment. Belmont's Revenge isn't meant to be played through just once, but rather practiced a little bit at a time until the player has the skill to finally beat the game in one sitting. Due to the choose-your-own-adventure setup, the first 4 levels do not build upon each other, but rather introduce different mechanics specific to each castle. Crystal Castle has falling blocks. Plant Castle has spiders whose silk acts as rope for the player to climb on. Rock Castle has the reappearance of the protruding spikes from the wall originally found in Adventure, and Cloud Castle has the moving ropes. Each of these obstacles create their own specific challenges and give each castle a unique feel. What's more, the final 2 levels take place in Castlevania, and the player will find all of these obstacles once more, but often mixed in with other obstacles and under more difficult circumstances. We're forced to use what we learned in earlier levels to aid us on our way through Dracula's castle. It's a great way to both give the player agency in how they want to go about their quest, while still keeping a linear difficulty that grows as the player becomes more experienced. The levels themselves are beautifully crafted. Each castle feels completely different from the last. All of the backgrounds are incredible to look at, a big step up from Adventure, which itself was not an ugly looking game. I have a particular fondness for Plant Castle. Watching the flowers bloom as Christopher walks by, one can almost feel the greenery and life growing around him. The music is of course incredible. Each castle has its own theme, and I particularly like that as you reach the end of the level, the music changes to warn you that a boss fight is quickly approaching. It allows the player to collect their thoughts and prepare for the battle ahead, and I wish this was more common in other Castlevania games. The score ranges from incredibly sad and moving pieces to those that fill the player with energy as they take down castle after castle on their search for the Prince of Darkness. Castlevania games have always drawn influence from gothic and classical music that came before it, but Belmont's Revenge takes it to another level. 8-bit tributes to Bach and Debussy can be found throughout the soundtrack. Just take a listen to one of the songs found in Dracula's castle. In a series known for its high-quality soundtracks, Belmont's Revenge stands among the best of them. While Christopher's sprite seems to be lifted from his previous outing, enemies have been given a graphical overhaul. In my review of Adventure, I praised the enemy design and still hold true to that statement, but Belmont's Revenge takes it to another level. To say Belmont's Revenge recycles enemies wouldn't be doing the game justice. While enemies are certainly repeated, they're given both a different personality and look. The sickle throwers are much creepier now, and their sickles have a different arc to them. The jumping goblin frogs that were once a boss in Adventure return as a common enemy, appropriately found living in the rich biome of Plant Castle and the nooks of small caves in Rock Castle. These enemies are the right way to have a throwback to the first game, both honoring and improving upon Adventure. While I like the use of ropes in Adventure, Belmont's Revenge does an even better job of implementing them as a core mechanic. It seems like every time we run into the ropes, there's a new challenge based around them, ranging from a moving spike wall to the ropes being made of spiderweb, complete with spiders still attached. Platforming in general is much improved over Adventure. Christopher has learned to jump a little further in the 15 years since his last visit with Dracula, and any Castlevania veteran should have no problem controlling him. Platforming still plays a role in Belmont's Revenge and is executed much better here than it was in Adventure. Landing on platforms and jumping over pits feels completely in the hands of the player, and anytime you die, you can be sure that it was your own fault. Boss battles are a healthy challenge. The bosses in the elemental castles are a little on the easy side for Castlevania standards, but make good use of the tools the player has and make sense since they can be defeated in any order. They don't move too fast and the patterns never feel overwhelming. The bosses in Dracula's castle, however, ramp up the difficulty quite a bit, particularly the last two with Solyu and the Count himself. While Dracula is certainly gonna roast your toast the first time you fight him, believe me when I say that it's not impossible. Thankfully, you're given a checkpoint right before the final battle, so unlike in Adventure, you don't have to repeat the entire final stage just to get another shot at Dracula. Belmont's Revenge easily earns a recommendation from me, but I highly encourage you to play Castlevania Adventure first. As long as you're patient, Castlevania Adventure is a good game, and if you've taken the time to understand its mechanics, patterns, and enemy designs, you're going to love Belmont's Revenge even more than you would if you started off there. I honestly have nothing bad to say about it. From the controls, to the art direction, to the level design, everything about Castlevania II, Belmont's Revenge, feels like it's building upon what Adventure lay before it. I still stand by my statement that Castlevania Adventure is an underappreciated game, but add to it that Belmont's Revenge is one of the best examples on how to properly make a sequel. I'm Bofner, and thanks for watching. See ya! I don't care what anyone else says, Castlevania Adventure is more fun than Super Castlevania IV.